Hey y'all, Bobby Hughes here with Hollow Point Firearms, and today we're going to be going over how to prep and pickle beets. Sweet pickle beets are an awesome treat to eat with soup beans and cornbread, or heck, I don't know what else you could eat them with. We always eat them with soup beans and cornbread. But anyway, they're awesome. They've got a different taste. I don't like pickles, but I love pickled beets. So it's definitely something that if you've never tried it before, I encourage you to try it, because my wife had never had pickled beets before, and had simply based her idea of the taste of it on what an actual beet tastes like. And she never had them, and I got her to eat one, and now she loves them. She's like, I can't believe I missed this for this many years. So definitely try out some pickled beets. We actually grew some beets in the garden this year, and needless to say, they didn't do so hot. And that's kind of the shot that you take with them. Beets are funny. Some years they do really, really good for you, and sometimes they don't do anything. So sometimes it could just be the seed, or it could be the planting depth, or whatever. So for whatever reason, our beets didn't do too hot, and we were out yard selling today and ran up on a farmer's market, and I managed to pick up some beets. So let's go ahead and get started on pickling them. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and once you get your beets, you want to go ahead and break the greens off the stems. Leave a couple inches on the ends of them, on the top of them there. And you don't have to worry about cutting the root off or anything like that. Just leave it exactly like they are. Like I said, leave a couple inches of the stems of the greens, and then you want to go ahead and wash them, and then put them in a big pot, cover them with water, and then we're going to cook these beets until they're nice and tender. And when I say tender, it means you could take like a knife or a fork or something like that, and you could stab the beet. You know, and it's going to be a little tough with a fork, but you should be able to stab the beet. Right now, if you stab it, it's not going to go nowhere. It's like stabbing a rock. So you want to cook them until they get to that point to where they're that tender. The reason for leaving the stems when we're cooking them is because if you break the stems off, they're going to bleed. And when I say bleed, what happens is it pulls the color out of them, and they turn a pale pink color. We want deep purple beets, reddish purple beets. That's what our goal is. So leave the stems out, keep them from bleeding out, and then just cover them with water and cook them down until they're tender. So you can bring it to a boil and just let it boil. I'm using I don't have a pot big enough to cook them in, so I'm using my my canning pot. It should work just fine for it. So I'll be back with you once they get done cooking, and I'll let you know how long I had to let them cook. Alright guys, so our beets have been cooking now for about an hour and a half or so, and I'll show you what you're looking for when you know that they're tender enough. First thing you want to do is try to find the biggest beet that you can, the biggest one out of the bunch. And I would say that this one here is probably the closest. So you take that beet, and let's see if I can do this over here so that you'll be able to see. So you want to take that beet, and you want to take a fork and stab it with the fork. And you see how easy that fork goes in there? That means it's tender all the way through. So that means they're done. Alright, so now what we want to do is go ahead and dump our beets in the sink, or in a strainer, or whatever. And if you wanted, this juice that comes off of these would be really, really good in a compost. But I don't have a compost, but it would make a really good compost. Just a warning for you too, anything that this juice gets on that's not stainless steel or something like that, it's gonna stain. Alright, so it's just a FYI for you. If you have white countertops, it will stain them. So we're just gonna dump our beets out there. And then we've got to let them cool, but what I'm going to do right now is just take some cold water and spray on them just to give them a rinse, help them start cooling down a little bit. Go ahead and take my pot here and rinse it out. Okay, so our beets have had time to cool, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to take and pinch off the top just like that, and then we're going to pinch off the root just like that, and then you just give it a little squeeze and the peel will just start peeling back, and then you just want to get the whole peel off of it. Run under a little bit of water sometimes, it'll help get that the rest of the way off of there. So just peel it off. Just like that, just give it a good rinse. We'll set it aside and we'll do all of these, just same process. Pinch off the top, pinch off the bottom, split the peel, and it'll just slide right off. So the important thing is just make sure that you get all the peel off of it, and any black spots that might be in it, you can just kind of scrape them out with your thumbnail. That's all there is to it. So let me get these all done and I'll be back with you. Alright guys, so I have my beets all cooked, peeled, and ready to go in the jars, or ready to be cut up and put in the jars. I've got my jars sterilized, so what I'm going to go ahead and do now is add a half of a teaspoon of salt to each pint. Alright, I've got a couple of quarts back there just in case I've got too much. I'm actually out of pint jars. I'm going to put half a stick of cinnamon in each jar. Got some allspice berries. I'm going to put 2 of them in each jar. And I'm going to put 2 whole cloves in each jar. Or I'm sorry, 3 whole cloves. Let's do 3. 3 cloves in each jar. Alright, so the next step is to cut our beets up and put them into the jars and get ready to, that's the next step. Little word of advice for you. Don't cut the beets on anything that are going to stain. Alright, I've already made mention of that, but you can stain. If you put them on a cutting block, a wood cutting board, you're going to stain your board. So I use a cookie sheet whenever I'm cutting the beets up. And a lot of people will slice their beets. I don't like my beets sliced. I like to kind of quarter them up. So what I'll do is I'll cut it in half here, just like that. And then I'll go ahead and cut it that way. And then if I still think they're too big, then I'll go ahead and cut it again. But these are pretty good size. I like my pickled beets about like that. So I'll cut those up and just put them in the jar as I cut them. Alright guys, so I have my beets packed in the jars and prepped ready to go. Ended up with 6 pints and almost 2 full quarts of beets. So now what I need to do is make the brine. Now what I have here is 4 cups of pure cane sugar, and I'm going to add 4 cups of vinegar to that, white vinegar, and 2/3 of a cup of water. Just going to mix that in with it. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat on. And I need to cook this down until it comes to a really light boil and all the sugar is dissolved. Alright guys, so the brine is ready to go. And what we're going to do is go ahead and just ladle our hot brine into the jars with the beets until the brine just covers the beets up. So right to the bottom of the mouth of the jar. Now, one thing I need to tell you guys about is for the amount of beets that I'm pickling, I didn't think that the basic recipe of 4 cups of sugar, 4 cups of vinegar, 2/3 a cup of water would be enough. So what I did was I halved it and added to it. So I put an extra 2 cups of sugar, 2 cups of vinegar, and an extra 1/3 a cup of water in. And I'm hoping that that's going to be enough. So we'll see. So I had enough, thank goodness. Alright, so now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and take my spatula or air bubble stick here, just run around the edges, make sure that I have all the air bubbles out. Push my beets back in there. And I'm going to take my wet paper towel here, just wipe off any gunk that might have built up on the ring of the jar. Whenever you do pickles, you have to be sure and do a good job at wiping the rings off, because especially like a bread and butter or sweet type pickle, because you get the brine is very sticky, and it'll create a thin layer on the mouth of the jar, and you want to make sure you get all that off of there before you put your lid on, so that you make sure you get a good seal with it. Okay, so it fit perfectly. I have 6 pints, 2 quarts of our pickled beets in our hot water bath canner now. I've got it, I kind of do something a little bit different just to help it out. It seems to work pretty good. I have a big eye up front and a small eye in the back. I turn the back eye on too and push the canner back just a little bit so that the back probably third of the canner is on the small eye and then the front half is on the big eye. And I turn both eyes on and it helps heat it up faster. At least it seems to help. But we have about 1.5 inches of water above the highest part. Normally you would process quarts for 35 minutes and pints for 30 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and process the whole thing for 35 since I have quarts in there. And that way it'll be good for the whole batch or whatever. So we'll go ahead and let those get going. Once it starts boiling, I'll start my timer for 35 minutes, and when it gets done, I'll be back with you guys. Alright, so I let our canner go for 35 minutes, and I turned the heat off, and I've been letting it set now for a little bit just to kind of settle down. So I'm going to go ahead and pull our jars out here with our freshly canned pickle beets. We're just going to set them over here to cool. This is the one that I was just a little bit short on having enough to top the jar off. Man, those look so good. I'm so excited about these things. Can't wait to eat. Alright, so just like with most any pickles, you're going to want to wait about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks before you eat these to get the best flavor out of them. Like I said, just like any other pickle, you need to let it set for about I would say at the least 6 weeks to get the full pickle flavor out of it. So I mean, you could eat them sooner than that. They're safe to eat right now if you want to, but they're not going to be as good as they could be. So anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to set and or wait and let these set. Make sure that all of them ping. Once they create that suction, they're going to make a pinging sound. And then we'll let them cool off for about 24 hours. In about 24 hours, the seals will be completely hardened. We can go ahead and remove the band, and the lid will be attached to the jar. Shouldn't have to wipe them off too much because I put a little bit of vinegar in the water and in the canner water. That keeps the jars from clouding up on us. So shouldn't have to wipe them off. Then we'll go ahead and date them and put them on the shelf. So anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed learning how to can and pickle sweet pickle beets, and try them out with some soup beans and cornbread. What's really good is to eat these with a little bit of chow chow on some soup beans and cornbread, and man, it makes a spectacular meal. And so anyway, what I might do is, because being up here in Wisconsin, I've noticed that there are a lot of people that have no clue what soup beans and cornbread is. And I talk about it a lot. I know you people down south are going to know, but a lot of people up here don't have a clue what it is. So, you know, I might make a pot for lunch tomorrow, and I'll show you guys how easy it is and what they look like. So anyway, don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe. Leave any comments or questions that you might have. And until next time, get out there, shoot some guns, be safe, and most importantly, have fun. See you guys later.